So I was a single mom. Prior to, I was in ministry. I was doing fabulous. I had business that I shared with my father that became successful, and I decided, at 21 years old, that I went to vacation in Maui, Hawaii, and I just loved it there so much. My mom was living there at the time. I said, you know what? I'm just going to try to retire. I'm going to sell my shares in my business that I own with my father, and I can retire on $100,000, for the rest of my life. And of course, $125,000 didn't last very long in Maui, Hawaii. And, I made it a little bit, a little season. And while I was there, I had a maid that was cleaning the house, and she would go around, she would anoint everything with oil and stuff, and she invited me to church. So I went, and, I just had an experience with God like I've never had before. And the next thing I am just totally in love with God and totally in love with Jesus. And so I just decide that I want to be in ministry. So I just let my condo go in Vegas. I let all the stuff that I owned, my business, everything, and I decided I'm going to go into ministry. And I went into ministry, and I did great in ministry. We had awesome outreaches, and we did all kinds of things. I mean, we started Bless the Block, and we were traveling all over the world. I was going to Ecuador and Peru and Philippines and working with the kids in the trash dumps and in payatas. And I mean, there was just so many amazing things. We had a whole ministry where we would buy shoes for children, and we would go into Kmart and buy shoes, and then we would give them out. And it was like, Souls for Souls Ministries and different things. And I just love giving, and I love to have a life of giving. And while I was in that season of my life, it became very apparent to me that my life goal was to somehow figure out how I could actually give 90% of my income away and live on 10% of my income. And that's really been my driving force behind me for all the outreaches that we even do right now. The different things that we're doing with the Christmas cheer and, just going all around the city and paying for the laundry in the laundromat, or going into the Target and just giving out $500 shopping sprees to all these single moms and their kids, and, going to the dog shelters and just giving, maybe even adopt a dog today. I don't know. But, just that life of living to give. And how I could figure out to give 90% of my income away and live on 10% of my income became really, really important to me. And I thought, gosh, how am I going to do this? I got to get to a place where my vortex is bigger than a billionaire. And so I went through this whole process of, having a church in Vegas and all these different things. And while I was there, I was also in a very abusive marriage at the time. And I was in a huge place of denial of not really realizing that. But once I became aware of what was going on, because 50% of or half the battle of whatever battle that you're facing right now is your awareness that you're actually facing a battle. So when you get to that place of being aware of something, you can't not ignore it anymore, because it's there every day with you, living with you every day. So I became aware that I was in an abusive relationship, and I had 3 kids at the time. And so once the abuse became so bad to my children, not just to me, I decided to leave. And it took a great deal of courage. It took a tremendous amount of courage and a lot of planning, because I had to get my mind in the right place to be able to actually go forward with a plan of having a completely different life again. And that's what I mean about the whole evolution of going from having one life to having a completely different life. It's not like it's almost like you die here on earth and are reborn many times. It's a very interesting experience. I don't know why I'm even sharing this right now, but somebody needs to hear this. That it's not just you just die here on earth and then you just go somewhere else. It's almost like it's happening on a daily basis here. And, maybe that's why it's so important to live in a place of a paradox, where to die is to live, to lose is to gain. You go up by going down. Everything is just in a paradox when you see it like that. So we're actually having many different lives here, maybe experiencing many different lives here on earth, that eventually get us to where we can fulfill our purpose, which is actually where I'm at right now, which is really amazing. So I end up getting away from an abusive marriage, and at 40 years old, after owning businesses, owning homes, owning cars, owning all this stuff, I found myself in the Chatsworth welfare office with 3 children under the age of 9, and looking at their beautiful faces and feeling like a huge disappointment to my kids, very, very disappointed in myself as a mom, because I couldn't believe that this was their life now, sitting, on the floors, because the place is just packed with people and packed with crying children, as you can imagine. And it just no place that you would want anybody that you care about or you love to be in and be experiencing. And, coming out of that, it was 3 years of just really felt like it was hell on earth, and maybe that's why some people actually say, I'm not waiting for the tribulation. The tribulation is right now. And I actually felt like I was living in the Great Tribulation during those 3 years. So, I think that what got me through is my faith, my faith that, even on my hardest, darkest nights, even in the absolute lowest low of my life, which was actually right around this time, 5 years ago, just not being able to afford to give my kids a Christmas, just couldn't afford it. It was December 25th and I had rent to pay in 7 days, and I didn't even know how I was going to do that, let alone give my kids a Christmas. And I remember that they spent that Christmas with their father because he could afford to have them, and I just couldn't. And I cried my eyes out that entire day in a corner, in a just a fetal position, like a big baby. And my faith sustained me, and I just cried out to God. And the next day I woke up and I just said, God, I said, I cannot have another day. I cannot have another day like I had yesterday. I can't have another year like that. I can't not have this anymore. And from that point, things started to turn around slowly. And I got a job. And it was like my first job that I had for a really long time. Because I had always worked for myself. Because I love that sense of freedom. I love that sense of freedom of having my own ideas and being able to contribute and add value in my own special way, and not feel like I was not able to create, and share whatever was within me. And there comes risk with that, but it was very, very important to me that I was in a situation where I could still be there for my kids. They were used to being homeschooled, and I wanted to be able to be there for them. And even though I was constantly chasing the clock, and I was, running them to early morning, school programs, running over to my job, they were in after school programs. So I didn't really see them a whole lot during that time, but I trusted that I knew, that in one day that all of this was going to make sense. I just knew it. I knew it. I knew that all of this was going to make sense one day, and that everything that I had experienced was somehow going to all be worked together for my good. And I really believe that. I believe that for each and every one of us, that everything is always working together for our good. Everything. Even all the trials and all the things that happen to us, in our lives. And there's so many stories that I've heard, not just my own, but so many stories, way, way, way worse than mine. Tragedies, travesties, disappointments, frustrations, abuses, just so many people that have been so down and out, trusting that everything somehow is working together for their good. And, through that process, I found out that if I could figure out a way to find something that was satisfying in that situation, just one thing, At that time, it was just satisfying. Even though, we moved into an apartment, I remember, sleeping on the floors. We had no beds. I remember we had air mattresses given to us. And I think about all the things that, my kids, all the, just the therapy that they were going through and all the driving back and forth and all the court, they had their own attorney, but just everything that was going on, just, the eviction notices. We'd always come home and there'd be eviction notices on our doors, in the apartment. I just know that even through all of that, it was satisfying to know that I was safe and my kids were safe. So I found satisfaction in that. So I always tried to remember to find something satisfying in that situation, no matter what. There was always something that was going to be satisfying. Through whatever it is that I'm going through, I always try to find, that, even when I'm driving in traffic, here in LA, and I'm on the 405 last night and I see all these bright red lights coming at me at 5 o'clock and I'm going, wow, look at all these awesome Christmas lights. Or I'm driving my Land Rover now, and I'm saying, oh my gosh, this is so satisfying. I got my heated seats, I've got my heated steering wheel, and I'm satisfied being in traffic on the 405. And those of you that live in LA know what I'm talking about. But, finding something that's satisfying through every situation that I was in really carried me. And of course, my faith did a lot too.